Hey, what's up everybody? We are back today with another Gwent deck build video. This is going to be for the Skellige deck. If you are looking to see this deck in action, please check the video description. There are links in the video description to some pretty extensive gameplay that I have done and posted with this deck across all of the areas out in Witcher 3. That would be the Skellige Isles, Novigrad, Velen, and Toussaint, or however you pronounce that. Let me give you my standard caveat here. This is not going to be the only way to build a Skellige deck or play a Skellige deck, and this is just the way I build it, the way I play it, and the strategies I use. Feel free to take what's useful from this video and use it, and get rid of the rest. This is not the end-all, be-all of the way to build or play a Skellige deck. Alright, now that that's out of the way, let's get into building out our Skellige deck. We'll go over to our Gwent deck here and start talking about leaders. Now, the Skellige deck is only going to have 2 leader cards available to you, and they're both good leader cards. It's difficult to choose which one. You're just going to have to play around with it and see what you think is best. The first one is King Bran. So it says units only lose half their strength in bad weather conditions. Now, this card is just an excellent card that is useful all the time. There's probably not going to be a match that you go through that you don't see a weather card come onto the board. It's possible, but more often than not, weather cards get thrown out. And this is a great way to have the effects of the weather cards when they get put down. So I really like this leader card. However, it is this leader card shuffles all cards from each player's graveyard back into their decks that I choose to use most often. The reason being is you are not a spy-heavy deck as a Skellige deck, nor are you a medic-heavy deck as a Skellige deck. So the Nilfgaardian Empire deck has a shit ton of medics. The Scoia'tael deck has a shit ton of medics. The reason I like to use this card is because it really negates the effects of medics. It keeps your opponent, specifically, at least for me, I use it to keep spies from coming back out of the discard pile onto the board. This is kind of my hedge against that type of gameplay, and I think it works really well. This is not a leader card that you're going to use in every match. When you're playing against a monster deck, you're probably not going to use this leader card. It just doesn't make sense. The monster deck can at most field a Yennefer hero card, which gives them 1 card to medic out, and they just don't have any significantly powerful cards that they're going to medic back onto the board that are going to make a difference. So it's kind of a meh type situation there. However, you get into playing against Northern Realms, it becomes useful. Nilfgaardian Empire, useful, as well as Scoia'tael, not for the spy cards in Scoia'tael, but more for the fact that Scoia'tael has some higher point value cards that they can easily medic out on you, and it's just nice to be able to completely remove that as an option, because those decks and the AI at least do play around that ability to have the medic in conjunction with all the rest of their deck play. So the only thing you have to watch out for with this is when you play it, because if you check out the faction ability up there, it says 2 random cards from the graveyard are placed on the battlefield at the start of the 3rd round. So this means when you go to the 3rd round, the graveyard, quote-unquote, is your discard pile. And when you use this leader ability here, you're effectively removing all of the cards from the discard pile and putting it back into the player's deck. At least all of the cards that can be moved. This isn't going to move hero cards, and it's not going to move special cards. At least it doesn't for me. So what you don't want to do is you don't want to wind up shuffling at the end of the 2nd round and then going into the 3rd, and then you have no cards to put back onto the board. So it's something you need to either do at the beginning of the 2nd round or somewhere therein, or use it after you've drawn cards in the 3rd round to potentially prevent a 3rd round medic where you're going to medic out spies on you or things along those lines. It's definitely something you need to use strategically and remember to use. Sometimes I get a little carried away in matches and totally forget to use this leader card, and although I will win, um, the match could have been more effective had I used this ability at some point. So definitely things to keep in mind. I definitely think this is one card that you're going to use much more often than this. But for me, the leader ability has never been something that I use to win matches. It's really something I use to augment my gameplay in a positive way when I need it. It's more of a one-off type thing. So that's why I choose this. Either one is a valid choice. I have nothing bad to say about either of them. There's just a little more strategy around using this than there is this. So that's it for leaders. We talked about our graveyard ability here that comes as the faction. Uh, this is just... think about the monster deck, okay? If you go to the monster deck, you can see that it says one randomly chosen monster unit card stays on the battlefield after each round, right? Okay, so this is like the monster deck's faction ability, except it is in the third round, and you wind up getting two cards, and both of those cards come from your discard pile. So this is if you watched our monster deck video, you had probably heard me talk about cheesing out wins with the monster deck, and that is because going into a third round, if you get your opponent's card count low enough, that when you go into the third round, you're going to be guaranteed to have at least one card on the board. If they only have one card to play, you're already up a little bit. You've kind of front-loaded that third round. For the Skellige deck, it guarantees you that ability to do that in the third round if you have cards in your graveyard. Now, you can't always be guaranteed, obviously, what cards are going to come out of your graveyard. And I have definitely gotten some shit draws in the third round, which has made this ability not as useful as it is sometimes, but other times I've just gotten wicked great draws out of my discard pile. So it really is it's a great ability. You just have to kind of watch it and manage it. And you can manage it along with this leader ability by managing what really is left in your discard pile for the third round pull to draw from. So think about that. Let that sink in. If you haven't played around with the Skellige deck, it's definitely going to take a few rounds for you to get a really good grasp on how this works and the best way to utilize it. So that's it for leaders. That's it for the faction ability. Let's talk about the deck composition. So let's get special cards out of the way right now. If you have been watching other deck build videos, you know I'm not a huge fan of weather cards. I like to use them when I know they're going to be really effective and there are great situations to use them. They have just never found themselves into my gameplay, so at least not in a significant way. So here is my suggestion, and this is the deck that I run with in all the gameplay videos that you're going to see in the video description. I put in 3 decoys. All right, we don't have any spies that we can decoy off, right? But the decoys give us a couple things. One, they help us manage a non-hero medic that is in this deck and use it fairly well using the medic decoy trick that lets you put a medic on the board, draw a card out of your discard, and then decoy it off, and then do it again and again until you run out of decoys. Allows you to do some drawing out of your discard pile over and over again. It works really well. So that plays into the strategy here. The second thing decoys are good for is you're going to be playing against decks that do have spies. So this puts you in a situation where you can decoy those spies off the board. You can also let them go to your discard pile and let them come out in the natural way as they would with a medic. So you could medic them out in the following round. I will mention this right now just so that I don't forget. If you wind up with spies in your discard pile going into a third round, you can wind up drawing them randomly with your faction ability, and instead of getting 2 point cards put on your board on your side, you can wind up putting up to a 9 point spy card on your opponent's board and giving them points into the third round, which is a really negative thing in my opinion, especially with some of the nastier Nilfgaardian Empire spies that have a high point value. It's just not something you want to do going into a third round. It's something that it's possible that it's happened to me. I'm not going to say it's happened. It's possible that it's happened to me. I might be speaking from experience. I'm not claiming anything, but something to watch out for. It's definitely something to keep an eye on, and make sure you know where those spies are and when they're available and when they're not. There is definitely some strategy about what you leave in that discard pile going into the third round. So I just want you to be aware of that. The other card that is a special card that I play with is specific to the Skellige deck. It is this one right here. It says triggers transformation on all Berserker cards on the same row. Let's leave this in here and talk about what Berserker cards are when we actually get to them. So we're just going to add these in. 1, 2, 3. And now, if you're looking for some additional things that you could put in, Clear Weather is definitely a valid choice. You can see now they have they've gone back and retroactively deleted the third Clear Weather from everyone's deck. So you could add these in. This is would be helpful with clearing off weather effects. You can also toss in some Commander's Horns. However, and you could also throw in some Scorch. I don't play with them. I do see the reason you might want to. They just haven't made it into my build. I've gotten really, really used to running with a specific deck and playing it in a specific fashion, and it's worked out fairly well for me. So I just, there's definitely situations where you might want to modify your deck, but you would have to know going into the game exactly what deck you're going to be playing against. I mean, if you're going up against a monster deck, man, Biting Frost would be awesome. Scorch would be great. Things along those lines. It just, you can't know that going in, and we try to build the decks around a one-size-fits-all type scenario where no matter what you're going to go up against, the deck build that you have put together is going to be effective against all forms of factions that come at you. So that's it for special cards. Definitely think about how you normally play, and if you're used to having Biting Frost, or you're used to having Scorch or Commander's Horn, things along those lines, throw them in there and try out the deck with them. Don't just leave them out, because I'm telling you, I don't play with them. This is really just my play style. So special decks or special cards are really up for further consideration. You've obviously got 4 more slots to use, so throw them in there if you like. Let's talk about hero cards. For hero cards, we absolutely put Geralt in, and Ciri, and Yennefer. Alright, so why do we use these 3 hero cards? Well, for Geralt and Ciri, they are 2 15-point hero cards. Hero cards can't be affected by any type of weather or buff effect, which is fine. They're just great to have. They are a high point value card, and I think they're a good staple of any deck, and that's why I like to keep them in there. Yennefer, she's a medic. You can't have too many medics. You can't use the decoy medic trick with her. However, 1 extra medic is never a bad thing. I love having her in my decks, and she's like American Express. I don't leave home without her. She's definitely something that sticks in my deck all the time. Alright, now a neutral card, and I know neutral, quote-unquote, is a bad word to use nowadays, that they put these fucking flags on all of them to confuse everyone. But this is technically a neutral card. We'll call him Vil. Vil can go in any deck, and we are definitely going to include him in our in our Skellige deck. The reason we're putting him in here is because he is a close combat Scorch. He is really awesome. I think he is a staple of every deck, in my opinion, especially if you're running decoys, because since he is not a hero card, you're able to play him, Scorch the close combat line, and then you can decoy him off and Scorch again. So if you're in a situation with, say, a monster deck where they play the Vampire Muster, it puts down a bunch of 4s and a 5, you can play him to get rid of the 5, decoy him off and play him again and wipe out all the 4s. Or if they throw down a vampire muster and a crone muster, you can wipe out the crones and then play him again and wipe out the 5-point vampire and play him again and wipe out the 4-point vampires. So this depends on how many decoys you have, but he is an excellent card to have in your deck. I absolutely recommend that he be in the Skellige deck. I miss him when I'm playing against a monster deck and he's not in my card draw. He's definitely a fun card to use when, especially if you get him with a decoy. If you get him with a decoy, it's fucking wicked. So I love that. Skellige Storm. I know we were talking about special cards before, ranged and siege units. It is a just wicked, wicked, wicked special card. If you're running a monster deck, damn, you better be using those because you are heavy on the close combat line, not so much on the others. But for what we're doing here, once again, it just doesn't make it into the build, at least not for me. Next card to talk about is Olgierd. Olgierd has to go in my opinion. He is a buff card that is agile. It allows you to add 1 point of power to every unit in a given row that you place him on, and since he's agile, he can go in the close combat or the ranged line. This means based on weather effects or what your card draw is, you may draw into a heavy ranged line play. You may draw into a heavy close combat line play. You may draw into a mixed play and have to make a decision on where he fits best. Him being agile, adding 1 point, I think it's a no-brainer to put him in the deck. Let me take a pause here, take a quick drink. Sorry, that's a lot of fucking talking even for me. Alright, next thing to talk about. I have an optional inclusion for you. And I'll tell you why. I hate muster groups in the fact that are split like this. Now that they made that change to muster groups where it fucked them all up. If you could play him and pull all of these guys out, or play one of these guys and get the other 2 plus him out, I'd be happy with muster group. But since someone at CD Projekt Red, in all their wisdom, decided to fuck with a single-player game for reasons passing understanding, muster groups annoy the shit out of me now when they're split like this. So I think this is a valid group of cards to include in your deck. They do go on the ranged line. You are going to have buffs for the ranged line like this. It's just not something that I play with. It's a valid inclusion. That's all I can tell you. Try it. You'll probably like it and want to play with it all the time. It's, once again, just not something that I play with. There's nothing wrong with putting this in the deck. It's totally a valid inclusion. We're going to leave it out because, once again, it's just not part of my standard deck. It is a modification I played around with before. I was honestly trying to get the number of unit cards in my deck down far enough that I didn't keep winding up with these really weird card draws that screwed my gameplay. So I took them out, but they're definitely valid to put in. Dandelion is a must for a close combat buff. He is huge. Avalak, a must. He is a spy. It's a hero card. You have no other spies in this deck. You definitely need to use him. The Cow, I think it's a valid inclusion as well. It has not made it into my deck anymore. Once again, it was something I sacrificed for card count. It is definitely something you can put in there. It's a 0-point card when you put it down, but as you move into the next round, or the round following, whatever round you put it down in, it stays on the board, transforms, and I believe it becomes an 8-point close combat unit called Bovine Defense Force, or 6-point, something like that. Either way, I think it's worthwhile including. However, as I said, I tried to keep my unit cards down as low as possible, so it got kicked out of the deck. Olaf, absolutely must-have, once again, for the same reason. He is a agile card, he's a buff card, and he's also a 12-point card. So if he winds up on, say, the close combat row with Dandelion, now he's a 24-point card. I mean, get out of here. That's crazy. So he makes it in the deck. Hjalmar. He's a valid inclusion. He's a 10-point hero card, but he just doesn't make it into my deck. Same reason with that is card count. I just, if he did something special, I could justify putting him in. But the fact that he's just a ranged hero card, yeah, going against the card count, once again, it's just not something that makes sense for me. Ermion, 8-point hero card, triggers transformation of all Berserker cards in the same row. You'll notice that he has the same ability on him that these special cards did. Okay, but he's only going to work on the ranged row. We'll talk about Berserker cards in a second, but let's just assume for right now that I know what I'm talking about, and he is definitely something you want to put in your deck. Cirrus. Absolutely. She is another one of those split muster groups, which is really fucking annoying once again. However, she is a 10-point hero card. She is part of a muster group, and when you do play her, she will pull out the muster group she's associated with. So let's go get that now and look at them. These are the Clan Drummond Shield Maidens. 1, 2, 3. These 3 cards are part of her muster group. So we are absolutely throwing them into the deck. They are close combat tight bond cards. So when she goes down and pulls all 3 of them out, that is wicked nasty. You throw Dandelion on that line as well, all of a sudden those cards are just fucking forget about it nasty. So you definitely want to use her. She is a staple of my deck. If he was somehow a 10-point hero card, then maybe I would consider putting him back in the deck with these guys. But this is a much better group than this, in my opinion. Take it for what it is, but I think they're better. Alright, Clan and Crate Warriors. Yes, they are 6-point cards. They are tight bond cards. Think of them like the Northern Realms deck for the Reaver's Dragon Hunters or the Blue Stripes Commandos. You know how nasty tight bond cards could be when you stack them up. I think they go in the deck, and I think they're really useful. Same thing with the warships, the war longships. These things, they're on the siege line, which is awesome. You'll see why here in a second, or you probably saw why just a second ago, but we didn't talk about it. All 3 of them, I put them all in. We're gonna get back to that one up there. Actually, you know what? Let's talk about it. So, the Clan Dim Impat. This looks really awesome. Okay, it is a Scorch on a ranged card that is 6 points. If you want to use Scorch, pull Scorch into your deck. This card can really, really, really fuck you if you use it at the wrong time. And so what the wrong time is the wrong time is using it where it winds up in your discard pile in round 2. Sorry, in round 3. So if you go to the beginning of round 3 and this is in your discard pile, what you can have happen is you can draw this card back onto the board with, say, let's say you draw your bear and you draw that card back onto the board out of your discard pile. You know what's going to happen? It's going to scorch your own bear off the board. That happened to me once, and I almost shit a kitten. I was so pissed off. So that got immediately removed from my deck. Sorry, I had to say that twice, but I was just so pissed off when that happened. I was beside myself that had occurred. So RNGesus took a big shit on me that time, and after that, I just right out of the deck. That thing never made it back into my deck, and that was why I do not like random occurrences like that, because it caused me to lose a match that I was planning on winning because of a strong third round, and that just, nope. I was not happy about that shit at all. So it's definitely something you can put into your deck, but I had a personal experience with it that made it get kicked the fuck out. So use it as you see fit. I definitely see why it is useful, but for me, personal reasons, it's no longer in my deck. All right, the Berserker. All right, we're going to take this card and talk about that weird little bear symbol that you see on it and what it means. It says transforms into a bear when a Mardrome, or however you fucking pronounce that word, card is on its row. That card it's referring to is this card here. Jesus Christ. Right there. As well as this card here. Ermion, because he has that ability on his card. And he's on the range line. Okay? So any cards you play that are Berserkers that wind up on the range line, he's going to be able to transform. Otherwise, these cards can be used to transform them. So what does it mean to transform them? Alright, so these cards become another card. This card right here, the Berserker, will become a 12-point bear that is a morale boost card. So, like this. Very, very, very good ability. He is on the close combat line, which means Ermion will not be able to transform him. If you get him, you are going to need one of these cards to transform him. The other cards that are in the Berserker slot there are these three cards right here, the Young Berserkers. Okay, each one of these, when transforms, turns into an 8-point bear that has the Tight Bond ability. So, just like these cards, or your Reaver's Dragon Hunters, your Blue Stripes Commandos, it's these cards, when grouped together, are also very, very wicked. And they show up on the ranged line, you'll see. They can be transformed by Ermion, and that is the one reason that we include him in our deck, is it gives us another shot at getting a transform card on the draw. Very, very, very useful. The nice thing about them is once they have been transformed, once these cards become their bear form, they go into your discard pile as that form. And then if you try to medic something out, or if they come out in the third round as your 2 graveyard picks, they come out as the bear. You don't have to transform them again. So once they've been transformed, you are good to go on them. You don't have to worry about having yet another one of these cards once you put them back on the board. So that's huge. You can decoy them off in bear form, put them back into your hand, and they stay in that form. So these are great. I love them, and they definitely go in my deck. All right, what else we got here? No. Yes, light long ships. This is a muster group. 1, 2, 3 cards. There are no odd cards out on this, so if you get one, you'll get all 3. I like this muster group because it's, for whatever reason, this is a great way to bait out a Scorch. The AI really likes to scorch these ships when you put them out, and I often will play them in advance of playing Ceres and her muster group, just to assure that I can get a scorch onto the board and hopefully get it out before I drop these guys down, because these guys are going to have a lot more points than my light long ships, and I really like to get these out to try to bait out a Scorch. If there is no Scorch, they're just a great muster group to have, because you do draw 12 points onto the board, but if there is a Scorch that comes out, it's nice to have this get taken out by those Scorches versus these guys, because these are so much more valuable. So that's why they're in the deck. It's a muster group. It's difficult not to put them in there, especially given their effectiveness. So let's talk about the next one, Drake Bondu. He's a must because he is a buff Commander's Horn on the siege line, and we're including these war longships. So these are tight bond cards by themselves. Then you're going to put a Commander's Horn on them and forget about it. I mean, it just can get crazy high points out of that shit. So he's definitely a must. Here is your medic. Let's take a look at that, right? typical medic ability, nothing that you haven't seen before. She is a must in this deck. She just is a staple of this deck. If you watch the Novigrad gameplay, there was a situation that came up where we wound up drawing like 3 decoys in a game and 2 medics and then 5 other cards, and we went with it, and it was because of this card and our 3 decoys that we just wrecked the AI. So she's huge. I would not play without her. The last card we're going to talk about here is Camby. He's another 0 point card, and he's a little bit weird, so let's talk about him. You're going to put him on the board, and when he gets taken off the battlefield, i.e., goes in for the discard on the round, he will automatically in the following round summon a 11 point hero card called Hemdall. Listen to that again. It's an 11 point hero card called Hemdall. That means that it cannot be affected by buffs or weather effects. You can wind up having this card go into your discard pile, and you can actually medic this out and use it again. So a situation in which that might happen is round 1, your opening move, throw Camby on the board. Round 2, Camby goes into your discard pile, Hemdall shows up on the board. You play a medic, pull Camby back out. Round ends. Round 3, Camby goes back into your discard pile, Hemdall shows back up on the board, and in rounds 2 and 3, you have front-loaded those rounds by 11 points. So what that means is you're up by 11 points at the beginning of each of those rounds. This is a miraculous card. This is my opening move almost every time I can make it. I love this card, and it is definitely a good pair for the Cal card. But as I said before, you can see we have 29 unit cards in our deck. This is a rather big deck for us. You know, we do like to run as close to the unit minimum as possible, but the Cow card is the exact same type of card as Camby, except the Cow card doesn't make a hero card. So making decisions on what to put in, what to move out, the hero card portion of that and influenced my decision both on Camby and Cirrus compared to the Cow and Guntaro Dim. So that is my deck. That is the deck you're going to see in all these gameplay videos as I mostly whip the shit out of everybody, occasionally scrape by the skin of my teeth, but just proving that this deck build, A, works, the Skellige deck is a valid deck to be playing with, and is something that you can use against all other decks. It's not a situational deck. It really is a great deck. Once again, go back and look at some of these other cards and throw them in your deck. Throw the Cow in, throw Gunter in, try him out. Throw in some Commander's Horns, some Scorches, Clear Weathers, whatever you're normally used to playing with, and see how it affects your card draw. For me, it was too much of a... it was too variable on the card draw. This deck is really, really reliant on decent card draw to begin with. I haven't lost because of card draw yet, but I can see it happening. But adding in those additional cards just really had a negative effect on the card draw and didn't let me get what I was hoping to get sometimes. Like, I really, really love to play with Camby, and when I don't get it, it kind of pisses me off. So when I was getting the Cow instead of Camby, I'm like, fuck this, let's kick the Cow out. I really like the Tight Bond on these and Cirrus, and when I was getting, like one of these and a Guntaro Dim plus one of these, I like these other cards more, and I would rather a better chance at drawing them than having a chance at drawing these. So that's my decision behind kicking them out of the deck. And as I said, the Scorch card, use it at your own discretion, but for me, personal reasons, I hate that fucking card, and it will never be in my deck ever again. So that's it. I I really hope that you got something out of this. I know a lot of you have actually been asking for this, and I've been putting off doing it. I just haven't had the time to get around to putting up videos. Been working way too fucking much, but I figured now that I had a little bit of time, I would put together a quick Skellige Gwent deck build video and put it out there for you guys to take a look at and hopefully give me some feedback on. I would love to know what decks you guys are still playing with and if what you think about the Skellige deck in general. Have you given it a shot? Have you played with it much yourselves? Did you just write it off immediately after you get out of Blood and Wine? What have you been doing with the deck? What have you been doing in Gwent? And lastly, are you looking forward to the Gwent card game itself when it comes out? That looks like that's going to definitely be interesting. So leave me some comments in the comment section if you got anything out of the video. I sure would appreciate a like on the video or a sub on the channel. But as always, thanks for watching. Take care.